voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. It's been over a week. We're back and we have a lot to talk about, and I'm sure some of what we'll talk about we'll get to in the super chat. So if you guys want to send in a super chat, support the channel, feel free. Also, if you guys want to donate directly to the polling GoFundMe, it's optional, but definitely that helps us conduct more polls more frequently. So make sure you guys do that if you'd like to. It's in the pinned chat, but we'll put the face cam on. We have 100 likes, so we can do it. That's the benchmark. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're almost to 200,000. We are getting there, and we have a lot to get to. No convention bump for Kamala Harris, a possible convention slump, but also there's other stuff. The interview, finally, Kamala Harris talks to the press. Not impressive. Did she lose voters? Probably not much. Did she gain voters? Absolutely not. And that's kind of the main takeaway with Kamala Harris. She's got this base, but she just keeps exposing herself every time she talks as this flip-flopper. That's exactly what she is. She is a flip-flopper. She is not giving a very good explanation for why she's a flip-flopper, and nobody believes her. She's a career politician. The perfect, archetype for somebody like a Donald Trump to run against, especially now that Donald Trump has these accomplishments and he's more popular than ever. He's out of the White House. There's no pandemic. The polls are looking good, contrary to popular belief. We've had a lot of talk about that. A lot of people just, for some reason, are panicking. A lot of people are also not fully listening to what I'm saying in my videos. I look at the comment section. It's like some of these people, it's like, people that presumably have been subscribed for a while too. It's like they just don't get it. And that's okay. But we'll see who's proven right at the end of the day. That's fine. But Kamala Harris is not fine. That's what's true. Because we see this interview. I said, I don't think it's going to go badly. And you could argue that it didn't go super horrible. Of course, the left is going to think it's like the next best interview of all time because that's what they do. Every single thing she does, they did the same thing with Biden. And is this really something that's all that great? No. And there's so many instances. We can go through some of them, but this is a big one. When Kamala Harris was asked about her covering up for Biden's health, she basically did that. She lied. She said she has no regrets and she thinks that he could serve another 4 years. Dana Bash should be fired from CNN if CNN was an actual news organization, which it's not. Because how do you not follow up with the question, then why did he drop out? This is a serious question. And you could say, well, ask Biden or whatever. But if Biden is fit to serve for 4 years and Biden's all fine, why'd you make him drop out? And she says she wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about Biden the second. No, of course she was thinking about herself. Are you stupid? Be honest, okay? If you're honest about it, yeah, I was wondering if I was going to be able to, assume the mantle or what the next step would be in the nomination process because all these people endorsed me, whatever. That's honest. You could say it's selfish, but it's honest. It's more respectable than, oh no, I was crying about old Joe. Nobody believes your BS. Okay, we're going to try to keep it clean as possible here. We'll see how long that lasts, but nobody believes this stuff. Not a single person believes Kamala Harris on anything she says. And this interview kind of encapsulated that. Tim Walz is also a liar, and we know that. In the first thing she was asked, and we're not going to play the clips of audio. We don't want a potential, and I'm sure I can get away with, 30 seconds here, 45 seconds here. Might do a video breaking it down tomorrow if there's no other polling stuff to cover. But still, Kamala Harris, what would you do on day one? We'll do what we can to strengthen the middle class on day one. Okay, you've been there. First of all, you've been there for 3.5 years. The middle class is revolting against this administration, and that's what people don't understand. And Bash at times did ask some of these follow-up questions. She did ask some decent questions. It could have been a hell of a lot better, hence why in the lower third we have softball, because that's what it is. And we knew that's what it would be. And who knows, maybe they did ask it. Maybe they clipped it out of the interview because it was pre-recorded. That is malpractice, at least with ABC. With the Biden interview, they released it in full. But again, they probably wanted him to get out of the way because even before the debate, they knew he wasn't beating Trump. And they probably still know Kamala's probably not going to beat Trump. So now if Kamala fails as bad as Biden or has these word salads like Biden has his mental moments or whatever, they're going to cover up for her because they know that it's either Trump or her. And that's what it comes down to. So yeah, she gives a word salad. Oh, we're going to do middle class, strengthen middle class, whatever. And then here's another thing. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. Voters want to go back to when it comes to the economy, when groceries were less expensive and housing was more affordable. Here's what Kamala Harris says. Well, the economy crashed. We had to fix the economy. The economy did not crash. Technically, you could argue that it did, but the stock market was better when you took office than it was ever before. Let's be clear here. And the economy is not just the stock market, but unemployment fell under Trump in the last year from 15% to 6%. Then it went to 4, a little bit below 4, and then it went up. It's going up again right now. So no, I mean, the economy was broken now more so than it was then. The economy was kind of on pause back then, and the stock markets crashed because of uncertainty. You had a recession technically because you had people out of jobs because of a pandemic. And she's like, oh, that's Trump's mismanagement. It's not Donald Trump's mismanagement. Donald Trump had a stronger economy during COVID than any other country in the Western world. We've covered this. We covered it extensively back in 2020. Everybody knows it. And, that's just the policy debate aspect of it. But she's just not giving answers that are really substantive because honestly, she does have nothing to say. Yes, she's dumb. Yes, she's dull for a politician. We know that. She didn't get by on merit. Her existence is an affront to meritocracy. Look at how she got into college, very low-tier college, low-tier law school. And then look how she advanced her career with Willie Brown. We don't have to talk about that. We're still trying to keep it PG-13. But still, I mean, read between the lines. You know how it goes. You know how it goes. And then there's more. Just when you think that she can't keep making advertisements for Donald Trump, Dana Bash says, you've been vice president for 3.5 years. The stuff you're talking about now, why haven't you done it? That's an effective argument. Kamala's like, oh, I'm very proud of what we've done. And then, I don't know, she pivots to a rant about insulin, which again, most insulin prices were below 35. Donald Trump was in the process of trying to cap it at 35, did it for some companies, not all, but some. Then they rescinded the executive order so they could take credit over the expansion, which very well could have happened under the first executive order. That's how these people operate. We know it. He's proud of the work they've done, and that's another soundbite for Donald Trump and his campaign. Seriously. And again, they ask her about, the border. Oh, there should be some consequence for the border. So basically, she's saying she wants border crossings to go back to being a civil offense. She does not committed to anything in terms of deportations, even though she wants to pretend like she's tough on the border. Nobody buys this stuff. That's the problem. Hillary Clinton in the debate with Trump, she's like, well, in some places we might need a fence. I mean, it's the same stuff that all these Republicans did in the 2016 primary. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, they're like, yeah, we'll support a wall in some capacity, but it didn't work. Kamala Harris was in charge of the border, regardless of how much gaslighting these clowns want to engage in. She was put in charge, not necessarily of, every person that crosses the border or whatever, put in charges of defining and finding out what's causing people to come into the country illegally. And she was put in charge of the border by proxy. And they called her in the media the border czar. Now, she never was the border czar because it's not convenient to the media narrative. It's not. But when you look at this, all she does, word salad. And this whole bipartisan border bill is the dumbest argument I've ever heard. This was not a border bill that you needed because Biden has even done the parts that were supposedly bipartisan and it's not working. He's just redirecting, reorganizing things around to make it look like less people are coming into the country illegally. That's all it did. And that is precisely why this bill was not a good bill. And we know it. And in terms of the support, it didn't have enough Democrats or Republicans to pass before Donald Trump said a word about the border bill. Not a single word he said was uttered about this bill at that time. Not a single word. So either way, the problem was the bill had amnesty. They're like the most conservative Republicans. James Lankford, who's owned by the Open Borders Lobby, total globalist clown. What is he even conservative on? Maybe like a social issue or something? Like, what does that exactly matter? He's from Oklahoma. The other three Republicans, Murkowski, Collins, and Mitt Romney. Neither of those three, there's a good chance neither of those three by next year are even going to be a Republican senator. I could see Murkowski flip, Collins, that's iffy. maybe becoming an independent who caucuses with the Dems. Could I see it? Yes. Is it the most likely course of action? I don't know. It just depends on if Harris is president, because she will definitely try to make deals. Maybe try putting Collins in the cabinet. She talked about putting Republicans in the cabinet. Here's the problem. That's not like some gesture that's never been done before. Obama had 4 of them. I mean, does that exactly mean that Republicans voted for Obama or that they're going to support Obama? No, of course not. I mean, she didn't even commit to it. She just said, I might put one. And we know whatever Republican she puts in that cabinet is not a Republican who, if anything, it'd be another reason to vote against this administration. Adam Kinzinger, all these other clowns, like seriously. And then we have the Tim Walz aspect. CNN pressed him, believe it or not, saying, you said you carried weapons in war but never were deployed in war zone. He said, I speak like the American people do. I don't know any American people that lie about stolen valor and stuff like that. I mean, they don't. All right, plain and simple. You could say, well, I was in the military, but even everyday Americans, they know that's like a touchy subject. They're not going to want to engage in stolen valor. Walz is a scumbag. He lies about everything. He's extraordinarily radical. He tries to pass himself off as this moderate. Everybody knows he's not a moderate. Trump called him Tampon Tim. It's probably Trump's best nickname in a while. Some people say it's really good. Some people say it's not good. I think it's effective because he put tampons in boys' bathrooms. When you're called Tampon Tim, that sticks. You know, Trump with Kamala Harris trying to find a nickname for her that's like effective, like Sleepy Joe or Crooked Hillary or Lion Ted or Pocahontas, probably the best of all time. But it's been hard, and I've tried to brainstorm. I couldn't exactly think of one. Maybe Crazy Kamala, which is kind of lazy, but it is true and it is effective. She comes off like she's a crazy person and her policy ideas are crazy. I like Comrade Kamala. It's probably a very high information type of thing, just like Ron DeSanctimonious, which I loved, but you know, it doesn't have the broad appeal. I don't know. Either way, doesn't matter. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need broad appeal here. The bottom line in terms of the nickname, in terms of Tim Walz basically saying, oh, well, you know, I misspoke, and then talking about taking guns away from schools, which is basically what he tried to do. You're a politician. You're a career politician. You know what you've done. You're not this ordinary American guy. It's not like Trump. Trump's always been off the cuff his entire political public life. There's a difference. Donald Trump can get away with stuff you can't get away with. And Donald Trump would never lie about serving in war. You know, he just wouldn't. Even Biden. You know, Biden probably could get away with it because there's so many insane things that he said. You know, I grew up in the black church. I grew up in the synagogues. If he's talking to Jewish people, he'd say, I would grow up in the Greek community, and it was Bidenopolis. Was his real last name, and then he would change his last name depending on who he's talking to. Biden was insane at that. I mean, we have a short on the channel way back covering that. But in terms of Walz, you know, he's a liar. He lied about the service. He abandoned his people. He dodged the question just as much as he dodged the assignment in Afghanistan. I mean, folks, Walz is a scumbag. Harris is a brainlet. There's nothing there. She's an airhead, and that's what she is. Whether people like it or not, whether they think it's nice to say, whether they think it's not so nice to say, there's not a lot of subject matter in Kamala Harris's brain. When you hear her talk, it's just the prepared talking points with a lot of word salad in between. And her on the debate stage with Donald Trump, so long as he's able to bring up policy effectively, she's not going to have any notes. She's not going to have a lot of time. I mean, preparation didn't work for Biden. I don't know how much that's going to do her, but we'll see. They hide her for a reason. They switched out the nominee because the last guy got exposed. Now, they want to keep everything with her under wraps so she doesn't get exposed. The question is, have enough American people caught on? Can we get enough voters to the polling place on, and also arguably more importantly, before, in some cases, Election Day? These are the real questions we need to answer. And we're going to talk about the polls, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. There was a lot of hot air in this interview. That's all it was. Lies after lies after lies. Their entire campaign is based on lies. Donald Trump came up with a policy on healthcare today about, we're going to do, mandated IVF protection or whatever. And I don't really know if I agree with that on a personal level. But in terms of the political impact, he got out in front of the issue Not only that, he proposed a unique policy about the issue, and then they say in the Harris campaign, they release a statement, Donald Trump is lying. He's actually going to ban this. It's like these people have become the real conspiracy theorists. We're just repeating nonsense because they have nothing. They have no talking points. We'll actually bring down the costs. You haven't brought down the costs. You can try to pretend that inflation was high because of Trump, when in reality, even if you want to attribute some of that spending to the CARES Act, Kamala Harris voted for the CARES Act, for one. For two, Donald Trump was out of office for months before inflation skyrocketed, and it got worse because of the mishandling overseas. The Russia-Ukraine war never would have happened under Trump. The energy factor, not talking about political energy here, but actual energy, that has played a massive role in the increases of inflation. They want to blame corporate greed as for why inflation is going up, when the profit margins, they're not exactly, going up compared to usual. It's not like they randomly decided to raise prices just for the sake of raising prices. In fact, their profit margins were dwindling for a while the inflation was skyrocketing. They have to do what they can do. They want to put in these price controls, and they're not talking about that anymore because they know how unpopular it is, but they'll try to do it. If they get in there, they'll try to do it. They will try to do everything that Kamala Harris has said in 2019. She was like, about the fracking thing, which is another thing. Last thing we'll get to before we talk about stuff other than the interview, Kamala Harris on the issue of fracking. Oh man, you look at that. She was basically saying that she now supports fracking, but she said there's no question back in 2019. And then they asked her about 2020, and they're like, well, my position has stayed the same. But Biden in 2020 kind of said that he wanted to ban fracking. He did talk about that in the debate with Donald Trump. And he did talk about that extensively in 2020. Kamala's like, well, it was 2020. You didn't make a position in 2020, and you were not to the right of Biden on energy in 2020. So you're a liar. You're a clown. You're trying to gaslight the American public. You haven't learned a thing in the past few years. Oh, I've been talking to Americans the past. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. You've been talking to your own supporters who don't care what you have to say. It's not like you've been talking to everyday people. They're like, Kamala, you're wrong on this. No, you've been talking to donors who are giving your campaign money, and they want you to actually kind of behave somewhat in an electable manner on policy in order for them to believe, the delusional belief, which, I mean, it could happen, but this delusion that, if she changes her policy on everything, then she's going to have a shot to win. I don't think it helps you being a flip-flopper, but maybe because the time window is so narrow that her not being able to define herself is in a way kind of a problem for Trump. But either way, everybody knows where Trump stands, and her trying to define Trump, that doesn't work. They're not going to do the age card because they can't. Maybe they would be able to do it more effectively if they weren't defending Biden the past 4 years. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to, because Trump eviscerated Biden in the debate. It's not like Trump is at Biden levels, but even then, Trump is more mentally, he's 78 years old, but he's more mentally with it than Kamala Harris, arguably. Trump can do a hard interview and give better answers. He does it all the time. Whereas somebody like Kamala Harris gets a softball interview, and even then it's a struggle session for her just to maybe, not lose support or say something dumb. That's not a win. Maybe you could say, she talked to the press. Folks, one time in a friendly network, pre-recorded. Like, I'm not saying that it's not better than nothing for her, but this notion that this is like, she changed a lot of people's minds. No. Not really. In fact, Republicans can go talk about other stuff now because of what she said in the interview. She gave them more ammunition for advertisements and everything, and she'd be smart not to do any more appearances. But she also went to a press conference with a decent pool of reporters. Donald Trump did it. How many times in the past month? He's done 5 press conferences. He did like 3 in a week. But Kamala Harris won't even do a press conference. She'll do a sit-down interview like this that's probably scripted, objectively pre-recorded, maybe edited, only 18 minutes long. Half of it was talking about family, which I'm not going to knock or whatever. But policy, there's no policy. The only thing I heard was child tax credit. That was it. That's all I heard, which is Donald Trump's policy. And you stole it from him after your campaign trashed J.D. Vance from supporting it. So what exactly is the whole ordeal here? I don't really see this interview being anything other than what it was. It's just something that kind of confirms that Kamala Harris is an airhead. She's a dum-dum. And that's the way it goes. So we got a lot to talk about, but Trump's campaign basically went on to attack the other things that were not mentioned, such as the ending cash bail for violent criminals, fundraising for the bail fund that freed rioters, some which committed murder, the tie-breaking vote for the bill that economists say fueled inflation. Yeah, economists. They're not the leading economists are very much in bed with a lot of the establishment politics, but they correctly will advocate for that being the root cause of the inflation and what fueled it, even though there's other causes that were due to Kamala Harris. Also, defunding the police. She said defund the police. She compared police to slavery, compared ICE to the KKK, repeated the praise of Biden. Well, she did repeat praise during the interview. She sidestepped it because she doesn't want anything to do with it, but she's been responsible. She's the highest ranking official that does not have dementia, but I can't even argue her brain is much better than Biden's, honestly. If Biden just didn't do the debate at this point, he could be polling a couple points ahead. I wouldn't say he'd be winning, but man, who knows what would happen. It just got worse and worse and worse. And Biden is trying to recover from the debate, made things even far worse than they were before. She backed Medicare for all, which sounds good, but it's really just socialized healthcare, bans private insurance, which most Americans and even a good portion of Democrats like. That's why Biden won the 2020 primary in part, besides the fact that they skewed it for him. But she also supports closing detention centers, which now she's filling up to say, oh, well, it's not border crossings that are illegal, even though it's basically the same thing. Also supporting reparations. I'm glad they finally brought that up because reparations are very unpopular. Trump should attack her on that. Also support for decriminalizing process. I mean, that's like, I don't know how much of a big pressing issue that is, but it's not something I support. So overall, yeah, 3 minutes, 25 seconds lying about the economy, 2 minutes, 36 seconds talking about immigration. She's pathetic, guys. She is pathetic. She's pathetic. Okay, let's go on. Let's move on. New poll today, Quinnipiac. What do people think it was? I was expecting Harris, same thing basically. Harris +8, Harris +7. That's what I thought it would come in at. Harris +1. Our poll has Harris doing better than Quinnipiac, the most liberal poll in the entire country. They say left-wing Rasmussen, but Rasmussen, they've been very transparent lately. I've seen a lot of the pollster, the head pollster there. He's doing a good job, it seems, and his polls are, as they adjust, they're reverting back to what I would expect the mean to be. But you look at this, Quinnipiac, Harris leading Donald Trump by 1 point. That's not good enough to win, and that's a liberal pollster after the DNC. Where's the DNC bump? It is not there. We were told Harris is going to be up by 10. Even people I like that are, analysts on the right thought that she'd be leading by a lot. And of course, you have the illegitimate aggregates like Nate Plastic and other organizations, which I'm not going to mention, that have these polls in their aggregate that are like top weighted according to them, that have blatant push polling where Trump leads the original sample, but then they say, would you vote for the stunning and brave black woman Kamala Harris or the evil orange Drumpf? That's basically how they phrase it. And then Kamala in that sample, it's like, she wins by 7 because it's priming. They prime the polls, and that poll should be not considered in the aggregate, but they do it anyways. These are the election mafia. They lie, and they will do worse than that. It is true. And Quinnipiac is a big part of it, but even they can't manufacture a big bump for Kamala Harris. In fact, yeah, their last poll did have Trump ahead. It was like Trump +1, Trump +2. But keep in mind, that was back like basically Biden didn't even drop out when they conducted some of that poll, but they were conducting Trump v. Harris. That was before any hype. Now you look at RCP, Harris leads by about 2, which after the DNC and given August polling is brutal in terms of the level. The Democrats typically get, I wouldn't say oversampled, but there is a response bias that is just hard to root out of the poll, even with weighting. But you look at this out of Quinnipiac, the most liberal pollster in the country, Donald Trump and Harris are in a statistical dead heat. That is not good for her. That's, I believe, likely voters and the likely voters sample. I could be wrong, but I think it is. But you look at that, that is not exactly a good thing. And we see this here. Wall Street Journal dropped a poll, another mainstream media pollster, Harris by 1. Quinnipiac, Harris by 1. Rasmussen, Trump by 2. Reuters is awful. They had Biden up by like 4 in June. They've Harris up by 4 now. I think their last poll was like a Harris plus 6 or something ridiculous. Yahoo, Harris by 1. Very effective at rooting out response bias. Actually, I'll give them credit. Because I've always said polls were probably overestimating Trump when he was over Biden in some of those mainstream polls by like 4 to 6. I genuinely believe that. And now I think the polls are doing the opposite, which you see here. Morning Compost, still stagnant, Harris plus 4. But again, Morning Compost had Democrats winning the generic ballot in the House by 5 points in 2022. I don't even want to look at their state polls. I've seen them. Even then, it's like margin of error type stuff in a lot of those states, which is surprising. But you look at these post polls, it's like Harris, Biden was up by like 7 at this point. Hillary was up by like 6. She was starting to go down from that August hype. Biden, I think, went down, then he went up again, and then he went down, and then the polls underestimated Trump. Are the polls underestimating Trump? I don't know. What I will say is I think 48-47 is where this race currently stands. Now, is Donald Trump at 48? It's very possible. Even if he's not, he's the one at 47. He still wins the election. He still wins. I genuinely am very confident he's going to win North Carolina at this point. Data looks good. We got to keep fighting. Everybody's got to do their part and get 5 people they know, 10 people they know who are not registered. Get them registered, but more importantly, get them out to vote. That's important. That's very important. But you look at North Carolina, Pennsylvania, that's the ball game. If Donald Trump doesn't win it, the path gets a lot harder. It should be an easy pickup, given where some of the shifts were in the state in 2020 and how they were mainly Biden-specific and likely to bounce back, and Kamala Harris not being a good fit for that state. Once again, all comes down to turnout. I think that Pennsylvania looks good. I think Arizona and Nevada look underratedly good for Republicans when you look into the data, when you look at certain things that I've discovered. Not going to say it yet, because I kind of want to, we're kind of withholding the power level a little bit right now in terms of that. But I think Arizona and Nevada, I'm extraordinarily confident as things stand today, which could change in those 2 states, that Trump is going to win each state, probably by a couple of points as things stand. I think he'll crack 50 in Arizona, maybe a tad below that in Nevada, but I think that he'll beat Harris by a point or 2 there, maybe by a little bit more, depending on what happens. And which groups decide to turn out at which rates. That's why it's important we get people registered, get people out to vote, erase that registration edge in Nevada. Republicans in Arizona made a monumental turn. It was 130K, now it's 260K. I mean, they doubled it up. Democrats were gaining from 2016 to 2020. We've reversed that. We've reversed it on its head, and a lot of people, I feel like, just don't fully realize it, and it's a sad thing. But I think that those states, he doesn't even need Georgia. He doesn't even need Michigan. I think he gets Wisconsin. Georgia, I still think he gets. But I think that, again, it just comes down to turnout, which groups are turning out at which rates. Are you seeing a bump in Trump support among, working class young black men in Georgia, for example? Are you seeing more college-educated whites leave Donald Trump in the Atlanta metro, which it's kind of overstated. A lot of it is overhyped. I don't think a lot are leaving compared to what people think. So it just comes down to turnout. That's really what it comes down to. So we will be looking at the super chats. We have a lot to get to. I did want to cover this one last thing as well, and we'll change the lower third there, even though that's kind of the topic that we're moving on from, but we'll come back to it. We're going to talk, I'm sure, with the super chats. But this comment that Donald Trump made, a lot of people not happy about it. Donald Trump was asked about this amendment in Florida, which deals with abortion. Currently, DeSantis in Florida, he made the ban, instead of 15 weeks for abortion, he lowered it to 6 during the primary, which is very bold. Because if he did that before the midterms, I'm not saying he wouldn't have won, but it would have been a very different election for sure. Because a lot of people didn't like that move in Florida because, again, a lot of people they're not pro-life, which is sad. I think it's sad, but it's the way the country is right now. And I think Roe v. Wade being overturned is not going to be a bad thing so long as Republicans find a way to navigate it properly. But Donald Trump said this. A lot of people upset, very vocal people upset. I don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be in terms of the reaction to it. In terms of, I'm not going to vote. I don't really think that a lot of people, because Trump has said the same thing before if you look into it, which you could say it's a good thing, you could say it's a bad thing. People are going to disagree, and that's the way it is. I could give my take on abortion for an hour, a day, a week, of why I think it's bad, why I think it should be ended, what we need to do with the strategy in the meantime, which I think Donald Trump is better for than Kamala Harris by every single metric. It's like running on banning slavery in the 1830s. You're not going to win. Even Lincoln, who ended it, said, we're just going to stop the spread of it. But then he actually ended it. So think about that, for example. When you look at this, Donald Trump was asked about that amendment that would basically bump it up and make it in the Constitution for Florida. There'd be abortion, whatever. Donald Trump said, I think 6 weeks is too short because that's the current thing. He says there has to be more time. So basically, Donald Trump, he didn't say he was going to vote yes on it, which is something that people need to understand. The campaign clarified it after. Some will say it's a cope. They can claim that. I understand where they're coming from. I do believe that they should listen closely, though, because it's very possible that Trump is just being evasive in a way that he thinks is going to be non-politically, cancerous towards him. But he says there has to be more time. I think 6 weeks is too short, which again, he's not somebody who's going to come out there and say, I want to ban it nationwide. He was never that person, though. This is the same guy that during his presidency criticized bills in Alabama for being too restrictive at 6 weeks, 8 weeks, for no exceptions. He's the same guy who said that the DeSantis bill was a quote-unquote terrible thing. And a lot of it is political posturing. Donald Trump, surprisingly, though, has been consistent on this issue his entire public career. The only difference is back in 2000, he said, I hate abortion. He was a Democrat, or Reform Party, I guess, at the time. He said that he hates abortion, but he doesn't think it should be outlawed, but he doesn't like it. And then you look at 2016, he's like, yeah, well, if it goes back to the states, it goes back to the states, and they can make their decisions. That's still his policy. He just happens to maybe be a little bit less personally, pro-life than some people would like, which you could say is a bad thing. I probably would think it's, I agree with him. But stuff like this is why Donald Trump is even remotely competitive in this election. People that want him to come out and supporting a national minimum, I think we can get towards that if we market it correctly. I think the way Vance put it is very eloquent, if we're going to be honest. Maybe after Trump, you could get Vance to come in and we could have more of like a Hungarian model where it's like 12 weeks nationwide. That's the mandatory minimum. That's how arguably it should be. Europe, we are really out of step with the rest of the Western world on this topic. Yes, I don't like any abortion. I don't want any abortion, but you also have to get elected. And most people in this country, they probably have a more favorable view of abortion than MS-13 has of murder, for all the abortion is murder crowd, which I tend to agree with. But you have to navigate it properly. You can't be going out here saying we're going to ban it. Even if you say I support a late-term ban, they're still going to market it as you support a nationwide abortion ban. So Trump leaving up to the states is smart. I think this comment may be a little unnecessary. Maybe you should say I'll look into it. And then I think the smartest thing for Trump, if any campaign manager staff is listening, shoot it up the ladder. Tell them that Donald Trump should say, I think that the current law is too restrictive. I also think that this amendment is too radical because it supports late-term abortion. I'm going to leave it blank. If he says that, that will retain, I feel like, the most support and kind of put his position on the map in terms of where he stands honestly. It's only a net positive from there. So that's the way I see how Donald Trump should navigate it because he's a voter in his own state. I don't know if he's read the full amendment. I think that he understands that it's just like a law that, loosens it up. He didn't say he's going to vote for it, but there's a way to navigate this that a lot of people may not be talking about. And the people saying, well, I can't vote on principle. Kamala Harris wants your taxpayer money to go to abortions. She's supported getting rid of the Hyde Amendment back in 2020. You keep that in mind. And in terms of the abortion rate, if you're pro-life, you want to lower that abortion rate. Whose policies would do that more? feel like Donald Trump would usher in a strong economy, more likely to do that. That's going to lower the number of overall abortions. And when you look at what Donald Trump had to say today, he said, my vision for a middle class is one that the envy of the entire world. Workers like you should be able to afford a nice house, a new car, and a growing family on a single income. Great rhetoric. That's the American dream. And if you have that American dream, you'll also have a more conservative culture in the long run.
My vision is for...
You will also tend to have less abortion in the long run, and maybe we could work our way towards that pathway. But this notion that Trump is going to get in there and be able to ban abortion with a stroke of a pen, it's not realistic, it's not feasible, it's not pragmatic, and there's not enough votes to put an abortion bill on his desk. They can't even do a 24-week, which is disgusting, given what happens in that, especially the last trimester. The baby could survive outside of the womb, and they want to essentially murder the baby. They say it's rare. I don't care if it happens 10,000 times a year. That's a lot of people. We talk about the amount of people that get killed in Chicago being a lot every year. It's like, what, 2,000 or something? You talk about, just several thousand more of that. It's absolutely abysmal what's going on. But this notion that, it's Trump is over, he's betraying, he never changed his mind. You may not like that that's his position, but he never changed his tune. The people that want you to believe he changed his tune, they're acting in bad faith. A lot of them never supported Trump in the 2016 primary or the 2024 primary, have been on the wrong sides of everything from wars to vaccine mandates to all sorts of stuff. Enough is enough with these people. Grifters, they don't want to see Trump succeed. They don't want to see the country succeed. I don't agree with Trump's stance. I don't agree with him on everything. That's normal. You shouldn't agree with somebody on everything. They say cultist, whatever. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I don't care what they say. Call me whatever you want. Still don't agree with him on everything. Still voting for him, though. Still more electable than whatever clown they want to trot out there on the national stage. What can I say? Let's get to the super chats. Johnny Heartdog kicking off the stream for 10. We got 2,000 live viewers. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. If you guys want any questions for me, feel free to super chat. But Johnny Heartdog says, I'm glad RFK is endorsing Trump, but he's still a progressive liberal. I have a lot of misgivings about him being in Trump's cabinet. He better watch his back. I don't have misgivings. I have a problem with these neocons who have been longtime conservative Republicans or principals, Mike Pence's, all these people that probably secretly are voting for Kamala Harris, or they're not voting at all being in the cabinet. RFK Jr. has had some liberal stances. I don't agree with him on everything, but I agree with him on the positions that he has in terms of his medical freedom, and I really agree with the food stuff. We have a problem. If you want a healthy country, we need to make sure get the seed oils out of the foods, do what we got to do to kind of have Americans eat like how we were supposed to eat, not eat these processed, over-processed, all this stuff. That's where he's kind of focusing on. And that's the best position for him to be in. But I don't have any misgivings about, he happens to be a liberal. I mean, he is kind of liberal. But he wants to spite the DNC. He's not going to get in there and stab Trump in the back. The fact he endorsed him was absolutely huge for Donald Trump, even if it just gives him half a point or less than that. It was absolutely huge and selfless and put an even bigger target on his back than he had before. He did not have to do that. He did not have to do it, but he did. And he deserves a lot of praise for that as somebody who has been critical as well of him in the past. I have been, absolutely. Don't try to say, you said this. I have said that. Okay, there's a difference. He was running against Trump. He's trying to take votes away. You're going to critique the guy, okay? He's joining forces. There are still some of those criticisms, but there's a lot of praise because it showed that that was an act of selflessness and that was an act of just absolutely just being on the right side of history. And he did not have to do it, but he did, and he deserves praise. Johnny Heartdog says, will Wisconsin and North Carolina not taking RFK's name off the ballot change the outcome? I wonder how much the first debate will move the needle. I don't know if it's going to move the needle much at all, but that's not a good thing for Kamala Harris. It's not good. because she still needs the needle to be moved in her favor, especially given how the polls are likely going to revert back to the mean. But in terms of Wisconsin and North Carolina, oh, their ballots. See, the thing is, Donald Trump is just in the middle of a bunch of names. Democrats got through a temper tantrum when I pointed that out. Oh, well, it's alphabetical. First of all, it's not alphabetical. They have a drawing, and then that letter is when they start doing it alphabetically. The problem is the past couple cycles and in many other states, Republicans and Democrats, or the inverse, are at the top of the ballot. A little bit of an issue. They have RFK Jr. second, conveniently enough. And whether you say it's randomized or not, it's still something that I feel like you have these older voters who may be visually impaired. It could be an issue. I don't think it's going to be much of one. Just make sure you check who you're voting for. Trump is on the ballot. Find him. I think most people can read, but still, just make sure. They've done studies on this stuff. But RFK, the votes that he's going to get, because RFK endorsed Trump in those states. He'll get some votes. I don't know if he's going to get votes at that point that are going to take votes away from Trump, given the endorsement. I think it's unlikely that he's going to be getting a lot of votes in those states. He might get, 0.2, 0.3. I don't think Trump is at risk of losing North Carolina. I don't think it's going to be within one anyways. Even when you poll all the full field, I don't think he would be making much of an impact. I don't think he gets 1%. I think Jill Stein, on the other hand, could be a problem for the Democrats because Josh Stein is their gubernatorial candidate. So it's going to confuse people. You might have double ballots. Maybe not a lot of them, but it could be thousands. It could be thousands. So that's also an issue. But in terms of Wisconsin, I don't know. The funny thing is that the Democracy people, they wanted to kick him off the ballot. Now that he wants to be off, they want to keep him on the ballot. The dumbest thing I've ever seen, but it's predictable. They don't care about any principle. They care about victory. That's what they care about. And we honestly need to be the same way to a large extent so we get what we want, but it's a little bit difficult for us to navigate because we don't have that same institutional pull that they have. But either way, does it matter in those states? Probably not enough. It's a good thing that Wisconsin is also keeping on Stein. They're keeping on is it Cornel West they're keeping on as well? So it's not like it's going to have that much. I think the Libertarian candidate might have more of an impact, and he's like a liberal clown as well, so I don't know. Johnny Hartdog for 10 says the only reason Tapper was fair in the debate against Biden is because they wanted Biden to lose so they could replace him. Don't expect the same fairness at the next debate. I don't. But either way, I mean, it's not like they can really do much that's going to negatively impact Trump. What are they going to do? Try to interrupt him? If they do it, they're probably just going to try to get him to answer the question, which is going to push him in the more, I guess you would say, put him on focus. It might backfire on them if they do that. So, of course, they're going to have bias, but they're not allowed to. I mean, the mics are muted, just like the last debate with Trump and Biden in 2020, where Donald Trump easily won that debate, regardless of any gaslighting from any bad faith actors. So we'll see. Either way, I think Trump is probably going to narrowly win the debate, but I don't think it's going to move many people's vote choices, regardless of whatever manufactured CNN panel that they decide to come up with. You see those panels like, oh, all these people support Kamala Harris after the DNC. Here's the problem. Like, a majority of the Macomb County, Michigan voters claim Biden beat Trump in that debate. So according to their own panel, that is, which their panels are cooked. We know it. Some people will claim that, oh, they mean everything. They don't mean anything. Luke Aguilar for 10 says, last Friday, I was lucky enough to see number 47 speak in Arizona. There he was endorsed by a police union shortly after they endorsed Gallego. How much would Trump have to win to see Senator Lake? MAGA, probably like by 3 or 4 at this point. I don't think the gap is going to be as big on Election Day just because of that Trump effect, the down ballot effect, the low propensity voters. When Trump gets them out, they just vote straight ticket R. I do think that Gallego, though, does have that appeal to that Hispanic demographic, and he's been effectively running ads targeting, them. And he is so fake. This liberal congressman from those liberal family in Arizona grifting as like this moderate who's like a centrist. And it's just the fakest stuff I've ever seen in my life, ever. But is it effective? I mean, maybe, because he's got the money already early setting the narrative. They don't have a competitive primary. We have a competitive primary. every cycle. It is an issue. People need to vote for Trump and vote for Kari Lake, and hopefully she wins. But as of now, no, she's not the favorite, but I hope she wins. Nick A says, Lichtman said he's making his prediction soon. I'm nervous. I don't care what Lichtman says. Lichtman is going to have Kamala Harris winning. I'll tell you now so you could stop being nervous. Now, what I'll also tell you is Lichtman is a hack. Lichtman's model doesn't work anymore. It is antiquated and it's very subjective. That's the problem. And he could very well have a lot of egg on his face this November, and how is he going to really chalk it up? The problem with Lichtman is he said Biden would have a better shot at winning than Harris because he's just so into the model for some reason. And obviously he's got a lot of bias too that he pretends he doesn't have. Like, I don't pretend I have bias. Of course, we it's literally in the channel description. But with Lichtman, you've got this guy who has this model. This election could come down to a couple thousand votes in Pennsylvania. There is no way you are going to tell me that something outside of that model could have been done to change public opinion of those 1,000 voters. You can't tell me that. Elections can be close. This one will probably be close to an extent, closer than it should be because of the way the media and the liberals, the Democrats, they replace candidates now on a whim. We can't do that. We don't have a bench that can appeal to that same voter bloc that Donald Trump can appeal to, at least not right now. So when you look at it, it's just like, this is a mess. It's a mess. This model, no, it doesn't work. Andrew Broadwater says, I'll be at Trump's rally tomorrow in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. We'll have a good time. Patriot345 says the debate will be the end of Kamala. Presumably. It could be. But I don't think it'll be the end. I think that there's a good chance that Trump can win the debate decisively so long as he says the right things at the right time. I think he probably is the favorite in the debate, but I don't think the debate's going to change people's minds. Look, 48% of this country have made up their mind on either side, and they're unmovable. Whatever remainder you get, some might go third party, some might not vote, some might come home. It all comes down to turnout more so than persuasion. The debates are more about persuasion. It's true that Trump's got to have a good performance, but he's also got to, he just has to, he should fire up the base in an effective manner, but also be, I guess you would say, good enough in tone where he's not going to turn off enough of those potentially winnable voters. And he's got to go in. He's got to expose her for the fraud that she is. 91Z28Bear says, look what happened to Kerry and Romney. Yeah, which flip-flopper won? I mean, which flip-flopper has won an election? Notorious flip-flopper. Maybe you could say Hillary counts as well, another one who lost. But the people that flip-flop so much on a whim, it does not help you after a certain point. It hurts you. Obviously, if she was still running on those unpopular policies, would that even be better for her? I mean, you could make a case that with some demographics it could help, but it probably would turn off some other people. Obviously, the healthcare stuff, the fracking stuff. I don't even think Biden caved on fracking. The immigration stuff is just shameless. That's pathetic, shameless behavior. She has not changed since 2019. And her saying, no matter what else the interview, no matter what else was said, her saying, my values haven't changed since 2019. She just gave Trump months of ads off that alone. Because it proves she's a liar. Oh, well, I just changed the way I go about things. No, you don't. You wanted to have taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegal aliens. If even the diluted translation is amnesty, that's bad enough. That's bad enough. I mean, I hear advertisements, Michigan, on the radio, Metro Detroit, it's all anti-Harris ads. And you could say people don't listen to the radio, and you're wrong. There they do. I can guarantee you that. There they do. And it's effective. David Mendez TV says with that, okay, we did that one. But, I mean, that performance was not good. If she brings that performance, if that's her best, she brings it to the debate. She probably loses the debate. I don't know if that's going to be the end of it. Okay, actually, we did not. That's a new super chat. So with that performance at the debate, yeah, it will be, she will lose that debate. And you can't lose the debate at this stage in the game. Debates their impact is overrated. but you can't lose it. That's a big problem. You just got to hold your own in the debate. Israak G says, October surprise. We know Trump's campaign communications were leaked to a liberal news outlet. There's a reason they haven't been leaked yet. Well, the subject matter of it was, in terms of the October surprise, there's one against Harris. The problem is that doesn't matter, because how many voters are swayable and how many voters already vote by then? The Bob Woodward book comes out. It's going to be full of a lot of juicy stuff, as every book that he releases is full of juicy stuff. Some will say Trump arguably would have won if nothing was released by him in 20. But we'll see. Could be something on either side. Who knows what's about to happen? Narolam says she didn't look presidential. It looked more like a deposition with Walz as the attorney or with Walz as her babysitter. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The first female president, you could say, well, every single event post-convention they do, it's with the running mate. But she hasn't done an event yet. I feel like most people would just want to see it be one-on-one or like an event like a interview. But Walz just being there, like, ready to step in if she messes up, which he's stupid too. He's also dull. He's not intelligent. He's a liar, a shameless liar. How many times? Remember when he insulted rural voters and tried to claim there's more context, but there was no more context that would fit into that, given the context of the rocks and cows line that he made. He's like, oh, it's more than that. Like, no, you were saying that the rural vote, those red counties are just rocks and cows, just insulting rural voters. Now, I don't think attacking Walz is effective for Republicans, just like I don't think attacking Vance is effective for the Democrats. The VP pick is largely overrated. I think the VP debate's going to be a lot of fun because I think Vance is going to run circles around him. That IQ gap is huge. Michael says female vote turnout will be Kamala's winning deal. Negligible. How many times did I hear this about 2022? Oh, well, the female vote's going to be like 60% of the electorate. It was 52%. 52% of the electorate. 2020 was actually higher than that. It was 53% according to VoteCast. So, you look at this stuff, female turnout, females, or the women, I should say, the women vote, the female vote, whatever you want to call it, that turnout is usually relatively stagnant. Presidential years, you're not going to get ridiculous demographic swings in that department, usually. But it's important. Men need to vote and get other men out to vote because women always vote more than men do. There's a lot of disaffected men out there who like Trump. Get them registered to vote. A lot of my audience is men. They know people like this. They live in swing states. They need to do that ASAP, stat, now. Because we did the poll on the channel. What is it, like 30% of you guys live in a Big 7 swing state that could go either way, whether it goes one way or another, because I think North Carolina probably is going to stay red. But, there is an off chance on a really bad night for Trump it could go, which is why we need to make sure we get everybody out that we know to vote. But we also have a good, 13% that live within like an hour drive, 90-minute drive of one. It's like, if you are free on Saturdays, why are you not going to go up there and volunteer if you can? Stuff like that. It's all a part of the winning puzzle. We have enough people with this channel just to win an election on our own. Can we actually do it? Don't just say it, do it. That's kind of the importance of how this thing's going to shake out. Bob, thank you for 4. LinRx2 for $50. That's a big super chat. Appreciate it. Says the lies are so hard to take. I hope the Trump team floods the zone with side-by-side ads to show it. More Americans need to know. Thanks for fact-checking the lies. Are you able to see some of the U.S. super chat or the, I assume you meant to say super chat, money for polls? I can. I'm just saying if people want to support the polling fund directly, which the money doesn't technically just all go to me. I don't even manage it. My name's not even on the fundraiser. We got multiple people that manage the polling firm. But if you guys want to donate and support it, which many of you have, and I appreciate it, we've raised over $6,000. If we could hit that $10,000 goal at some point, I would appreciate it. But even just $5 there helps out if you want to see more polling. But even just donating with Super Chat, it does all help out for sure. We will use it, but I think more of a cut is taken. Andrew Mortensen for 10 says, I don't know how anyone could vote for her. That was the worst interview I've seen in my life. If you vote for her, you have a low IQ, TDS, hate this country, or all the above. Oh, I agree with that. You just don't get it. I don't understand how anybody could vote for this woman ever, unless you just happen to be somebody that falls into those categories. The TDS one is strong, which I never understand. It's been 9 years. What did the guy do when he was in office that you don't like so much? He didn't concede properly or something. What these people say, just ignoring the fact that it was the other side who did a lot worse that year, far worse that year, and was already planning to do the opposite. By the way, look at some of these interviews before the election. Yeah, the polls are up. Biden's up by 10. If Trump wins, it's going to be because he decided to redact the election. How many times did we hear that? And obviously the inverse is something, but that's like the most they can really come up with. And even then, who cares? Donald Trump winning the election would prevent any sort of that stuff from happening anyway. So just vote for him if that's your problem. Like, I don't understand it. Oh, it's chaos. If Trump doesn't concede, then vote for him if that's the problem. It's true. They won't do it, but it's true. I wonder how many of those voters exist. There might be some of them. Propa says, I want to know how independents feel about this interview, but it's hard because my social media is an echo chamber of how I feel. I think true independents are very rare. I would judge based off of what I know. They're not impressed. If they were not voting for her after watching the interview, they're not going to be sold unless they already were going to come home to her anyways, which I don't think it's that big of a share of the population. The Pueb says, if Trump can fill up a football stadium and Kamala can't, would that transfer over to turnout? Not necessarily. Biden with his circles and Trump with his big rallies, and you see that. And obviously, overnight materials, but Biden did win the popular vote in 2020. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that because of several factors, and part of it is because they changed and overhauled the whole election system to do it. And now we see a little bit of defortification. But Kamala gets big crowds. Some of them are bust there. Some of them are because of concerts. But she can draw a crowd. It doesn't mean much. Drawing a crowd, a rally crowd, it's better than nothing. But an enthusiastic vote is the same weight as an unenthusiastic vote. But if you look at the polls in terms of likelihood or enthusiasm to vote, it's neck and neck. And independents are not really fond of Kamala, which is why she can't really run ahead in the polls, is because Donald Trump and his base is growing. Harris, there's questions about how much she changes the electorate. But who that was like, I'm not voting for Biden, I could never vote for either of these people, maybe there are some people that'll be like, oh, I'll vote for this Harris person. That's why they're trying to keep her away from the media. I just don't believe it's enough of the electorate to make a difference when you have a full turnout election and non-voters already preferred Trump over Biden. It's probably not exactly going to change a whole lot because Harris is directly tied to Biden, and a lot of people aren't stupid, and a lot of people at the end of the day know it. The problem with Biden wasn't that he was mentally incapacitated. The problem was his policy sucked, and he's mentally incapacitated, so you can tie the two together. Kamala Harris doesn't even have that excuse. So, she'll get maybe some of those, Democrats that park their vote with a third-party candidate. Yeah, she'll energize the left a little bit more, but she's not getting more than like 48, 49% of the electorate. Maybe she hits 50. I don't think that's good enough. She needs 51% of that popular vote nationwide to win this election, one could argue. She might need that 51%. I don't see her getting it, given the fact that in the polls she's peaking at 48. Biden peaked at 52. Hillary peaked at 49. They got a point lower than that. Donald Trump in those respective cycles, he peaked at like 45 in 2016. He peaked at 46 in early 2020. So you add a point to Trump there, you get the margin. You subtract a point from the Dem. It's not really a great model, but Harris really would need, if she's really peaking, she'd need to be doing a lot better now. This is not like everybody hates Trump, so they're just going to vote Democrat. Everybody doesn't like Biden. People hate Biden more than Trump. Harris is directly tied to Biden. I don't know if I buy the entirety of the favorability swings we're seeing in polling either. And there's a lot of other stuff that goes in. Apex Caliber says DeSimps making drama on IVF in 6 weeks, Bill coping. Well, if we ran an election the way they want to run an election, these people would be laughed at. They wouldn't be able to talk about electability ever again. A lot of these DeSantis or bust crowd, it's derangement. It's what it is. They don't care about conservative principles, because then they would vote for the most unprincipled, liberal, farthest left nominee of the Democrats they've ever had, even relatively speaking, like McGovern tier candidate. It's the only reason why she's got a shot is because this country is, spiritually just taking a nosedive. And that's partially why you have things like, you can't even get a heartbeat bill, even though it's common sense. You ask the average person 20, 30, well, maybe not, but I feel like if you just ask the question like that, you would probably get a better way of getting a response. But I think people care more about losing it now, losing the access now than before, potentially. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's sad overall. People can't function without their abortions now. It is what it is. But you got to change public opinion. I think having like an actual change in society, change with the individual, the culture, everything, that's probably what we need. And Donald Trump is the change candidate. He's always been the change candidate, change for the better, leading the country down that pathway instead of the pathway of destruction, which is the Harris pathway, the Biden-Harris, Harris-Biden pathway. Let's see. Michael Varney says, quite obvious Kamala's reading from her notes. Well, I didn't see that, but maybe, you never know. Jimmy Payne for 20 says, could it be possible that with the historical change in candidates, the polling did not have time to catch up and show Harris +4 or 8 like Biden or Hillary in the past? Hopefully she's not underestimated and Trump is. Thanks. Well, I mean, I don't understand why people would think Donald Trump is underestimated in the current polling. Whether they think that, he'll have some sort of collapse. And all I hear from people is, the Fed's cutting rates. What's that going to do? Are people really going to see the impact of that instantaneously? Probably not. People are going to be voting at that time. And the unemployment report that we're going to get, who knows? Obviously, it's going to hurt Harris less than it would hurt Biden, but it should hurt them equally. It's the same administration. She supports the same policy. She hasn't pointed out a single policy she disagrees with that doesn't include her veering over into textbook Marxism. So that's the way it is. Patriot345 said, did you see the Fox News poll on veterans? It was, I didn't see that poll. I saw the polls. Fox is not a right-leaning pollster. I don't know how many times I have to say it or tap the sign. Fox News is not a poll that is Republican favorable. I've said it for 5 years on this channel. I'm going to say it again. The people that are saying, well, Fox says Trump in trouble, you're not looking at the big picture. Well, I am looking at the big picture, and you're not. That's the way it goes. Now, is it possible Trump could lose some of those states? Yeah, it's possible. But is it because the Fox News poll shows it? No. You don't see drastic changes in the race like that in public opinion, which is why I don't buy the entire shift. I think that the polls are coming back to reality a little bit. And yeah, Harris might lead in the popular vote, but keep in mind, she needs to lead it by a lot more. I still think Trump could win the popular vote. I don't know if he's the favorite to do so, but he's clearly the favorite in my book to win the Electoral College. Even Nate Plastic believes it, which maybe since Nate Plastic believes it, Trump is cooked. So who knows? Fiji Boy says 1 to 10, how much should we worry about the keys? 0. We should worry about this election. We should not worry about the keys. I don't know how many times I have to tell people this. The keys are not going to determine who shows up and votes on election day. You have a polarized country. You have different levels of energy. There's all sorts of things that go on here. People don't like the state of the economy. They don't. But Lichtman's keys say the economy is doing really well. The social unrest, I mean, yeah, maybe that's more fair. I mean, you have the college campus stuff, but they're not like BLM full-scale riots. So you have a lot of stuff going on, but not quite anything what the keys are saying in terms of this, like, there's a Donald Trump or some of these candidates in the past that he's analyzed in terms of their ability to be charismatic or whatever. It's like, well, Trump does energize his base. He might not be charismatic to independents, but the fact that he energizes his base better than most Republicans energize that same base is probably a reason why Trump would be favored more so than another candidate. But he can't see two and two together. Like abortion, for example, that's not in the keys. Abortion's nowhere in the keys. Democrats say we're going to win off that. And if they do win, I don't know how much of that would play a role, but probably more so than, oh, people thought the economy was good, because people don't think the economy is good. Independents don't think the economy is good. They may not view it as Great Recession level, but they definitely view it as worse than they viewed it even in like 2020 during COVID. They viewed it better then than they view it now. And that's kind of the thing. Ice Cream Junkie says, what's with Sam Brown polling poorly in Nevada when it's a toss-up at the presidential level? Name recognition and down-ballot Republicans underperforming Trump. We saw it in 2020 in a lot of cases where they actually went out there and did a lot better, or they outperformed the polling, and they outperformed Donald Trump in the process. So I think Sam Brown can win, but if these states go red by 2, Wisconsin goes red by 2, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does, Eric Hovde's probably going to win. The ticket splitting is not what it was before. Tim Sheehy could win by 10. Bernie Moreno could even win by like 4 or 5 and shock a lot of people when the betting markets have him below 50% in terms of his odds. I'd say he's a near lock at this point, unless he completely bombs down the stretch, which we'll see. But people that get that ballot, they vote Republican for Trump. Those low propensity white working class voters, they vote for Trump. They're going to vote Republican down ballot. A lot of those voters probably didn't turn out in 2012 to vote for Sherrod Brown. Well, he didn't even outperform Obama in 2012 if you look at the percentages. He got the same percent, and the third party was not exactly left-leaning either. So do the math. He's overrated. I'm not too worried about that. I'm not too worried. I mean, Nevada, Brown, if I had to guess, is probably not the favorite, but I don't know. I still think that even if I might put Republicans at 52 in my next prediction, I think at the end of the day, they could come away with like 53, 54. 51, that's like the absolute floor, but I genuinely believe that Democrats are not going to win Ohio. I'd be very surprised if Trump takes that state by 8 or 9, even at a minimum, and Bernie Moreno ends up losing. I mean, that would be like the biggest split. But if Trump takes it by 10, which I think he will, take it by like around 10, I think Moreno could take it by like 4. Wouldn't be surprised. Let's see. LinRx52 says, who wants a president who can't foresee the consequences of an open border, axing fuel production, and massive unnecessary spending until after it happens? This is kind of the problem. And why should you be given a promotion when you failed at your job? Whether you want to say it's been the border, whether you want to say it's been the economy, she is the highest ranking official in that administration with any sort of poll. Biden has given her power. Some vice presidents are figureheads. She's maybe a little bit more than that. They're trying to make her into that figurehead. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Let's see. Ash K2 says the data suggests Texas is on the verge of flipping blue. Allred's running a strong campaign. In 26, could Cornyn hold on since he's more... that is not 26 has nothing to do. I hope Cornyn probably loses a primary or retires, and he'll get replaced by a actual conservative that can win the state, even in a red wave or a blue wave of sorts, or a Trump midterm. But Texas is not going to flip in the Senate race. Texas is Allred is nowhere to be found. I've seen one ad of him on YouTube this entire time here in Texas. I've seen little to nothing from Allred. And to be fair, Cruz, I mean, there's not a lot from him either. But sharing the ballot from Trump, the down ballot lag in some of these suburban places where you have more ancestral Republicans, it will be there to an extent, and that'll stop bleeding. I think Cruz might even do well downstate in Texas just because he's got that Hispanic last name. Allred did very poorly in the Rio Grande Valley in the primary. I think some of that does carry over. I think Trump takes Texas by around 8. I think Allred probably falls short by like 4 to 5. It'll be closer because Cruz is still a little polarizing, but Allred hasn't done much to make inroads. I mean, he's basically Beto without the crackhead energy that he had when, and he didn't have the Beto mania that Beto had back in 2018. So I don't really think that he he got the worst side of both sticks on that department. I'm Home says, what do you think about the drug epidemic destroying our nation? I think we should probably honestly do something about the cartels, go to war with the cartels, take them out. It should be a winnable war. It's an America First war. It's not against the doctrine. I think it's something that we could look into. But I think in terms of what we need to do is we need to make sure that we get have some of these prescription drugs, make an opiate type of a painkiller that's not as addictive as the ones we have currently are. We got to really do something with Big Pharma. I think RFK Jr. would be very good in that role under Donald Trump. Josh Light says, Rep, you see the Target Smart article about a surge in Dem favorable registration since Harris became the candidate. Anything to be concerned with? Well, that's predictable. But here's the problem. In 0 state that they track of the competitive states, we're talking, even if you want to put Florida in there, but these actually competitive states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, we don't really have data on Arizona or Nevada. What it shows is Democrats kind of stopped the bleeding for a while, and then it kind of phased itself out. So still, even in those weeks where Dems gained more, and there was a noticeable Dem increase, and which is waning, Republicans gained voters on net. So it's like they were just replacing old voters that were getting cleared off the rolls. It's not the biggest deal, and it's already gone in terms of the spike we've seen. As for like this, black female registration went up in Michigan or something like that. Okay, interesting. The margin that you see is like maybe 1,000 to 2,000 voters registered at most compared to like 2020 at that point. Is that really the biggest thing in the world compared to all the positive registration we've seen for Republicans over the past 4 years? Probably not. Overall, I would say it's not the biggest deal. I feel like Georgia might be the state that would get impacted the most by that, but we'll see. I don't think it's anything to be super concerned about. I see people, Democrats in Pennsylvania, they're like, oh, well, here's these counties. They give 7 counties, and then 5 of them are like super Democrat, and there's minimal Democrat registration gains on net, which we weren't seeing before. But then you look at the entire state, and you go back for 4 years in the state, Republicans were gaining in every county, but still, if you go look at the entire state, those are the only like 4 counties in the state that actually had registration gains for the Democrats. So it's not really all that good. And there's a lot of like ancestral Republicans there, and like Chester, Montgomery, changing the registration, probably haven't voted red at the presidential level since Romney in 2012. So I'm not particularly concerned with the data because it's not as good as it should be for Harris. And that's the thing. Nichols Network for 2. Christopher Laurie for 5 says, what are your take on the North Carolina governor's race? I hope Robinson wins, but he's definitely going to run behind. I mean, he's not broke, but they're trying to make it an abortion referendum. And I think he, at the end of the day, is going to be within a few. But our own poll had him down 10. We're just releasing the results as we get it. But we don't push undecideds or leaners on the governor's race. But either way, He seems like he's in for a tough haul among some independents. There will be some Trump-Stein voters, but keep in mind, there was about 5% of the electorate in North Carolina that went for Trump and Roy Cooper. There was a big split there too. So it's not like North Carolina doesn't love their Democrat governors. They do. Nyron Amald says Trump's abortion comment was like a lightning rod taking the impact away from the debate, which the Dems were banking on. Look, it doesn't matter. That's the thing. They're still going to bring it up. Now, you could say that Trump's softening the rhetoric is better than him just avoiding it because he is able, because he does appeal to a lot of voters in like the Rust Belt or disaffected Dems that way. Like, yeah, he expands the coalition. He has gained some voters from some of that, but you don't want to overcook the pot either and piss off your own base, which I don't really think he did as much as some people make it out to be. But it is what it is. Brandon says, thank you for keeping us informed. Your dedication's appreciated. Well, appreciate you for the super chat. Lovely Six says, what do you make of Nate Silver? Around here, we call him Nate Plastics. Trump numbers. I think that it means, if anything, Trump is screwed because that guy's got the reverse. I don't know, his track record is just not that good. It's not very good. Margin-wise, awful. But I think that it is true that it's a good thing that even people like him can see that Trump is the favorite, because he is the favorite. There's no way around it. You can say he could lose. He can lose. People should be worried about the possibility of him losing. But again, this election was never a lock. Even with Biden, it was never fully a lock. He could have made a comeback. When he would have been the nominee, the media would have gaslit the hell out of people, and it wouldn't have worked, but, still. We have more of a super chats here. Nichols Network says, my college makes us watch CNN Student News. I don't see it as a viable source of information, especially since it likes to attack Trump. Yeah, I mean, CNN, it's not... They say they try to pretend to be moderate, and then all the Republicans are never Trump Republicans. They're not moderate. They are corporate media. Honestly, I'm not saying it's bad to watch the opposing side, because you do learn a lot that way, but they're not all that good. Let's see. We have more super chats. Mike Oxard says, the abortion issue is such an electoral cancer for Republicans. I don't like it, but the fact is 2020's America is against banning it by a mile. Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is. I think that a lot of people might be open to supporting some restriction, but, on principle. But when they get in the voting booth, it's like different. And part of it is the failures of the pro-life movement, which would rather attack the man that gave them this leverage than anything else. They really have dropped the ball with the referendums, dropped the ball with the messaging, the wording, and they're just in disarray. They're in disarray. Their leaders are not people that are leadership capable, I would say. And that's something that's an issue. That's an issue. Omar says, should Trump campaign in Virginia with it possibly flipping? I wouldn't bank on it. The numbers don't look bad, but there's so many other states that matter more. Real Texan Politics says, Lila Rose profits off legal abortion. That's why she privately supports Harris, grifted to the core. Of course, because look, when there was no real message of the full ideal policy goal, the pro-life movement back then, but they had the boogeyman of, we'll get rid of Roe, abortion will be gone, which is not how it works. But that was the goal, which was also Trump's goal, get rid of Roe, put it back to the states. They did that. Now they're mad at Trump because Trump doesn't want to do anything else, but why don't they just continue on without Trump and realize, he's better than Harris, he'll do these other pro-life reforms, and then we'll work on, these reforms here in this state or these reforms here. The public opinion does matter, and you're not going to be able to make things outlawed overnight. I would ban a lot of things if I could ban them like, it's banned. It's not how the world works. I mean, some things I think are more feasible than others. Some things are ineffective to ban. Some things probably you got to get public opinion to change, and then you can ban it. In the meantime, there's so much we could do, so much pro-life policy that's not directly abortion related that Donald Trump will be engaging in that nobody else will. And honestly, Trump should message it that way, because it is true. You want to give the pro-life crowd a reason to turn out. Well, what is the message to those voters? There should be a message to those voters. Obviously, I think a lot will turn out for Trump anyways, because a lot of them have other issues at hand. But, there is that notion that you want to get as many people as possible to vote Republican that happen to be a part of that designation. I think a lot will, because Harris is awful, but still. Andrew Byer says, how do you think the comments on abortion affects him electorally? I'm seeing very discouraging things on Twitter from conservatives. Well, those people are not real life. I'll say that much. I wouldn't worry about the Santoid or some of these other people that are like, Trump is abandoning, I won't vote for. A lot of it's just bluffing or fake. Either way, look, I mean, how many people heard Donald Trump's Florida comments before, which were the same as his Florida comments now, and said, I'm not going to vote for him? Very few. So, it's probably the way to answer the question, maybe not the best. I feel like he could just come out and make the blank vote statement, and that would probably be better. Who knows? I don't think he should encourage conservatives to vote for that amendment, whether he decides to do it or not. I don't think he's going to, but it is what it is. W. Hardy 04 says Kamala has lived more of a Christian life than Don. That's not how this thing works. I don't understand that. I mean, I don't know if it's a liberal troll or, conservative just messing around that we got. But no, Kamala Harris's Christian life is when you get by without merit because you get things handed to you. The Christian life of sleeping your way up to the top and just getting things that you don't earn. That is extraordinarily wrong. There are many Bible verses you could point to that just fly in the face of that. But apparently Donald Trump happens to, I don't know, he has some few marriages. A lot of people have had that. This is the thing. Democrats, they don't believe in any aspect of Christianity. They like to use it as a political weapon whenever it's necessary to try and be like, haha, look at you. You're not a real Christian. It's like, what do you care if you are or if you're not, when you're in many cases agnostic, atheist, not a real Christian, or some of these liberal Christians which go to the same place as those other people when it's all said and done because they're heretics. They're not real Christians. So no, I mean, Trump is flawed. He's a flawed man. But to say that Kamala lives a more Christian life than Trump, at least Trump has children. You can't say that, they say. It's true. Trump has kids. Kamala doesn't. Adopted kid, raising a kid that's not her own, that's not in line with biblical teachings. So no, I disagree. I mean, Trump is a flawed man. Everybody's a flawed person, except for one person that's ever lived. And he died 2,000 years ago. And didn't really die technically, depending on how you look. You know what I mean. But to say, Kamala's more appeal to Christians, no, she doesn't. What does she do that's more Christian than Trump? You could say, well, Trump did, this other stuff with these people allegedly 20 years ago. It's like, that doesn't make you a fake Christian. But then Kamala Harris, look at her sex life, all this other stuff. That's worse because she used that to advance her career. Whereas Donald Trump was able to use his career to presumably advance his sex life, which is, it's not ideal way of living, but it's far less egregious in terms of where he's able to get to where he's at, in terms of the role that is played. CJYT96 says, do you believe in the exceptions of rape, incest, and life of the mother? If you don't, I guess you support little 12-year-olds carrying babies. Yeah, that's the line that they have. Like, they actually think that there's a bunch of 12-year-old girls out there. It's a common occurrence that are having these babies. It's very rare. These are freak accidents. And most people support the exceptions. Most politicians would. They're very, very rare cases. Everyone supports life of the mother. Pretty much everybody supports that. As for some of these other things, there is a gray area. I think there's a moral perspective and feasible political perspective. I don't support, you're like, oh, well, you don't support that. It's like, why are 12-year-olds getting raped in the country in the first place? That's the problem. A lot of the time as it happens, it's an illegal alien that's doing it. Like the Ohio case, they tried to guilt trip Vance over, and he completely just flipped that back on Tim Ryan in that debate. So Mike Oxard for 5, RFK for FDA, Tulsi for Secretary of State. Yeah, how good was that town hall, by the way? Vivek for Chief of Staff, Elon for Chief of Government Efficiency or something. Oh yeah, that needs to happen. I agree 100%. Alcides Perez says, Scott Pressler is turning Pennsylvania red. Yeah, I mean, he's done a lot of great work, but it's more than just him, and people need to understand he can't rely on just Scott. He does a lot of great stuff, but people need to get involved themselves. Like, it's kind of the thing. It should motivate other people to get involved, and it has, but it should. I'd like to, kind of relay that message. There's American Wasp says, regarding abortion, IVF, mind your own damn business. See, this guy, first of all, you're wasting your time watching. You probably disagree with everything, and then you're wasting your money sending it in, which is even funnier. But what about the baby's business? All right, does the unborn child mean nothing to you? Does it mean nothing? Even past the point of the gestational limit where I can feel pain? I mean, I actually think murder is bad. I have this horrific opinion that I believe murder should be illegal, that I believe murder is wrong. And, we could debate on when the life starts. Scientists will agree with my position regardless. We could debate on that. But what we can't debate about is the basic fact that past a certain point, before the baby's officially born, that would be a life that can feel pain, has its own distinct blood type, DNA, it's its own entity. That is a problem. And if you go out there, somebody shoots a pregnant woman, kills her, it's a double homicide. So apparently only she can kill the baby because they agree it's a baby if the woman's pregnant. There's a lot of stuff there. This argument, which I'm not going to address this guy directly, but I will address the argument. It's not about my body, my choice. It's not about your body, your choice. Not when it comes to food in many cases, not when it comes to vaccinations, not when it comes to anything. When it comes to choice, not when it comes to school, not when it comes to a lot of things. They want to mandate the hell out of every single possible thing. This is the one thing that they happen to believe in the choice of, and it also happens to be deadly for somebody. People can debate the weeks. They can debate a lot of stuff. I happen to believe life begins at conception, but, some people disagree. I believe they're wrong, but some people disagree. So whatever. Ice Cream Junkie says, what's with Trump doing so well in Virginia? He's not. I don't even understand where this is coming from. He was up in a poll by 3, and then Quantis, we like Quantis, dropped a poll, has Trump, or he was down 3 in Virginia. Then he's also down 3 in the Quantis poll. So I don't think it means a ridiculous amount. It could be closer. It might be worth a shot, but it's very unlikely he wins Virginia without the state of Michigan, which is why I don't think he needs to put a lot of resources into the state of Virginia. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of energy. Alcides Perez says, Pennsylvania voter registration for Republicans looking good. Exactly. She's on top 17, says election comes down to apolitical people showing up to vote for Trump based on, it's the economy. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of issues. It's which electorate do we get? Because if we get the electorate of 2020, Donald Trump is going to win. If we get a lower turnout electorate in certain areas, which I'm not going to get too much into, Donald Trump, and we'll get into it at some point, believe me. But Donald Trump is going to lose at that point or he will be at risk of losing key states if certain groups don't turn out versus which groups do turn out. And it's not a gender thing necessarily. It's not a racial thing necessarily. It's another demographic that is crucial for Republicans in this day and age, given how Donald Trump has destroyed the old guard of the Republican Party and where they're taking this party as things stand today. And that's what the election will come down to. That's where the winner will be determined. Manuel Ramirez says, what are Trump's chances of winning Georgia? I think he's favored. I think it's honestly, I'll even say it's 60, maybe even a little bit higher than that percent right now. I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it's possible Trump wins without Georgia. But it depends on turnout. And in Georgia, it is kind of more of a racial gap. What's it going to come down to there? Is Donald Trump going to make inroads with black voters, for example? Is he going to do that? I don't know. A lot of people will say probably not. But even if he gains 3-4%, that's not a lot of voters, as it seems. But it does add up. And how is he holding his own? Is he doing even better, turning a corner with white college-educated voters? And what's his turnout among the lower propensity, but maybe higher in Georgia because they're used to voting Republican more, the white working class voters, the rural turnout? It's a big part of the state. And also, how do some of those exurbs fall? We'll have to see. We'll really just have to see. Nyron Alm says 538 data says that Harris' increase in female vote is obliterated by loss of black and Hispanic male vote for Trump. Dems assume the same minority vote. They're not going to get the same minority vote, not with the way Hispanics have been moving. She might get 87% of the black vote. She could get that. That's still down. But, it just comes down to which demographic. She'll do well with black women, But black men, yeah, she's not getting that same hype and energy as even Biden was able to get in 2020, especially younger black men. Older black men will probably come out for her at decent rates, but even then she might see a dip. But Hispanics, that's crucial and might make her bed in the state of Arizona and the state of Nevada. They've been really hostile to her entire career, even when she was running in the state of California, which that's going to be interesting to watch. Pixel Pancake for 10 says, hey, a longtime viewer from Australia here. Have you seen the YouTuber election predictions official? And if so, what do you think of his content? Would you say he's relatively unbiased? I think the predictions are probably more unbiased than most, but I think that the politics of the people that run it probably tend to be a little bit more on the left from what I've gathered, but we'll see. Alex says CNN showed this interview during the Colorado game because they knew it's a disaster. I mean, do that many people care about college football games in late August? I mean, maybe I'm out of the loop, but who knows? Rob Roberts for 10 says, do you think we could trust Brian Kemp to help Trump with Georgia? Well, he has that apparatus. They are using it. He is fundraising for Trump. He didn't have to do that. So I think it's better that they get along than if they don't get along, because Kemp has a lot of popularity there. And it's not just Republicans, because, I've never been a believer of this. Oh, if Trump attacks Kemp, he'll lose. But if Trump is teaming up with Kemp, that could help him more so than not, because he's gotten a favorable rating that's high among Democrats and independents. And it's ridiculous. He's got a 64% approval rating. The majority of black voters approve of his job performance. For a Republican, that is unheard of. So while he's not perfect, if he does do what he's supposed to do, he gets bonus points. Brad Raffensperger, awful Secretary of State. 2020 election just got rolled over by Stacey Abrams. Leaked a call with Trump, knowing the media was going to make him look bad, even though Trump was vindicated out of the call, if you read the actual transcript in the context. But you look at Raff, he now is getting RFK off the ballot as RFK wanted. He's keeping the third parties on the ballot as they've wanted. Cornel West in Georgia, could he play a role as well, eating into Kamala Harris's margins among younger black voters that are more in that Bernie Sanders wing? Yeah, it's possible. It's not a big voting block, but it's there. Users 8817 says, I actually wonder how New Jersey will go because the last governor debate, I assume you mean election, almost went red. Gubernatorial elections are not presidential elections. It'll get closer, but not because of that. That's not a good indicator. Chris Christie won in 2013. Donald Trump did not win in 2016, even though Christie was one of his biggest backers back then. That wasn't even a size reference. I guess it is now. But how the tides have turned. TechGO490 says, hey, Rep, did you see the new Bloomberg poll showing D+8 Wisconsin to it? Yeah, okay. Morning Compost is back to being Morning Compost. I don't know. I think they've just been very, very prone to response bias, which was giving Donald Trump a boost in some places. See, we keep it objective. I don't think he was up in some of these places, but I said it at the time. When he was up by 7 in Georgia, I'm like, I think he wins Georgia, but I don't think it's by 7. And I still think he wins Georgia. I don't think it's going to be by 7. But just because the polls show Georgia as like a tie, it's not really changing my position on Georgia. Even though Biden, after the debate, he was in free fall. Brittany says, Nate Silver at Trump beating, yeah, we covered that, beating Kamala. Nick Hastings says, I still think Trump wins over 300 electoral votes. Well, he's got to get Michigan, most likely, to do that. I think he can. The enthusiasm in rural Michigan is insane. I mean, it is insane. They say you can't use yard sign analysis, and it's true you can't, but I mean, you got a town of a couple thousand people that has like 200 Trump signs out. That still is enthusiasm. People that drive, they know it's election season, and probably they're voting for Trump. So take that and do what you do with that what you will. But you didn't have any enthusiasm for Tudor Dixon in 2022. You didn't have that, especially among these demographics. Probably some of those voters that have those Trump signs probably voted for Whitmer. They probably did. The data would back it up. Not many of them, but some of them. A lot of them didn't vote as well. Let's see. Tequila Mockingbird says, I'm an independent voter and I think the economy is just fine. Well, just fine as in just fine, or just fine as in just fine? Because the economy, in terms of the data metrics, a lot of it's fake. You have no new jobs, net negative jobs for American citizens at this point. That is just absolutely despicable America Last behavior to say that the economy is good for those people. Now, in terms of the inflation rate, it's gone down, but the prices are still up ridiculously. Wages not rising fast enough. You have ridiculous inflation. Have you been to the grocery store lately? That's another question I would ask you if you think that everything is doing just fine. Have you gone out to eat recently? Have you seen the prices there, which are even more ridiculous? And people will choose to blame corporate greed despite corporate profits on net not even rising as the inflation rate is going up. I don't know. But that's what they have because they want to blame everybody except for themselves. And when you're pointing fingers, you are losing most of the time. When you are pointing fingers, you're losing, even if it's not actually your fault. So do with that what you will. Let's see. Maryland Degati 83 says, can Trump win North Carolina with the ballot screw up? Yes, most of us can read, but it is not normal that you don't have the top two at the top of the ballot. I don't care if Harris is at the bottom. You need to have it the way Michigan does it, the way a lot of states do it. Republican at the top, Democrat. You don't put 5 people nobody's ever heard of, and you have to then find the Republican, and then another few people, and then you find the Democrat. Because you do probably have a few, I got to vote. I don't follow politics. Let me check this box. Okay. You voted for Cornel West. Congratulations. No, but it's a problem. I don't think it's a big one, though. Just make sure people are aware of it, which is why I posted that in the first place. It's not because I don't think Trump fans can't read. Of course they can read. And the left is mocking that. It's like, what do you want, literacy tests to vote or something? Like, I thought you were supposed to be against this type of stuff. You don't even want voter ID. But apparently, if somebody might be visually impaired, you happen to think that that's perfectly fine to have a confusing setup on a ballot for those people. You think those people shouldn't be voting. I had several people tell me in the replies they think that people like that shouldn't be voting. Very interesting, because they know that it doesn't benefit them. It's not about our democracy. It's about our regime, our established order. If you transcribe that word in there, that's exactly what you get every single time. It does not sound as nice and easygoing as they want to make it out to be. It just doesn't. Alcides Perez says, Pennsylvania Republicans keep registering voters, will win. Hopefully they do. Sodium Soldier says Trump needs to deschedule marijuana. He'd get Democrat votes on top of helping the opioid crisis. First of all, descheduling doesn't do anything, from what I understand. Biden wanted to do it. Did he even do it? I don't even know. But no, I don't think the weed stuff is really all that helpful. And it's bizarre. You have this weird urban, rural, suburban divide. In Ohio, the suburbs in that referendum were probably, if you look at it relative to how they voted for the abortion thing, the suburbs were more likely to vote, against weed, because they understand what it does. The rural areas, it's like, they don't have to walk around downtown and smell the odor and do all that other stuff. So, I don't know. Weed is a fad. It's become legal off a fad. The fad may very well go away. And I don't think you're going to see states decriminalize it or recriminalize it anytime soon. But it's not something that I feel like is going to do much to win over voters, because, like I said, a lot of people, they've done it anyways. And over the years, going back decades, in places where it is legal, like Michigan, did that impact the governor's race at all? With turnout, probably not. Probably not as much as people will think. But I disagree. I don't think that it's a good thing to legalize necessarily. It's basically legalized everywhere to some degree. Trump did a lot of that with the Delta 8. They'll say it's not real stuff because it is lower potency or whatever, but the Farm Bill definitely did some of that. And I don't know. Medical marijuana, though, is a different story, because I think medical, if it's actually prescribed to the people who need it, it could actually cause big pharma some problems to a certain degree. depending on how much control they have over it, of course. Let's see with this. More super chats. Jay Jazz's Mark Halperin states there's private polling suggests nationally in battleground states she's not ahead. Did you see his video? I did not, but I believe it. I've heard that from a lot of people. It's true. She's not leading. There's a reason why she's embracing Trump's policies. There's a reason why she's pivoting so hard, and we can't let it. It's so fake. You can't allow her to win like this. She has a track record. It's right in front of your face, supporting all the things that she now claims to oppose. You think she genuinely changed her mind? No, that's a cope. We call that coping. That's what I've been told. Jonathan Williams says, it's sad Trump may vote in favor of Amendment 4. Not going to make him lose my vote, though. If you're in Florida, please vote against 4. I agree. Eric from Wisconsin says, Nate Plastic is the Jim Cramer of the polling world. Yeah, I've gotten that name myself, but I was pretty accurate in 2020, and people don't like to talk about that. But 2022 was kind of a miss. But we know why we understand why, the correct reason why 2022 was a letdown. These other people don't, despite the data staring them directly in the face. I would probably, if I had to go back and make the prediction now, probably still have Arizona's governor going red. And I think we understand what happened there to an extent. But no, it's true. There's a lot of stuff that was not accounted for at the time that was it's blatantly obvious in the data. I've studied this for hours on end. Recently, too. But it's crazy. Hudson Dean says 2 questions that are off topic from each other. What do you think of Lila Rosa? What do you think of public transportation reform in big city? Well, she's, like I said, she's grifting. She's always been a neoconservative. She's always supported these more, I guess you say, liberal things, like identifying as some sort of feminist and supporting the war in Ukraine and supporting Jeb in the 2016 primaries. It's an industry for a lot of these people. They don't care about lowering the abortion numbers. They want something to be mad at. And now that person is, I guess, Trump, instead of trying to get actual reforms passed at the state levels, which may be more feasible. They're not even talking about Amendment 4. They'll talk about why Trump is bad for being a fence sitter on Amendment 4. As for the public transportation reform, it would depend on what you mean by that, because there's a lot that I'm not all that sure about. I'm not against it entirely, depending on how it's done. Trevor Hintz says the Republican Kamala says she consider for a cabinet position would be Liz Cheney or Adam. Yeah, it would be somebody like that, of course. Obama had a few in his cabinet, didn't change anything. Polite Rude Guy says I vote to keep weed illegal here in Texas. Well, I don't think it's on the ballot, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, Texas is a cultural bastion of conservatism to sometimes a degree. It's like they don't even let you bet on politics in Texas, which I think is a little too much. But no, I mean they keep a tight ship. I'm kind of glad that you have to go to Oklahoma to go to the casino, or that there's certain restrictive hours on the alcohol purchases. It makes people more disciplined to an extent. I think it's a good thing overall. But Texas is the way it is. Cyclone 25 for $100. That is a big super chat. Thank you, Cyclone 20. And it's his first super chat, too. That's even more incredible. Saying, hey, Rep, you're the best political channel on YouTube without question. Well, I appreciate that. That's a big honor. There's a lot of good people. Also, do you think the presence of Kamala on the ticket will make Iowa's third competitive enough to worry about? No, I don't believe so. I don't think Iowa is really at risk right now of all the states. Apparently, Selzer, the gold standard, allegedly sitting on a Trump plus 19 poll in Iowa. That's more in line with the state fair results, which were predictive in 2016. Is it fully viable? I don't know, but she didn't release a poll in a while. Maybe she doesn't believe the data. So we'll see. But I think Trump is going to do just fine in Iowa. Jacob Carter for 10 says, Trump at the debate says, why haven't you removed Biden via the 25th? Or do you think we're safe with Biden getting on that 3 a.m. phone call? Also, God bless you, man. Well, God bless you, and thank you for the 10. But I don't know if he's going to say that, but depends on the context. Jonathan Williams says the GOP is undergoing a political realignment. The party is moving away from true conservative policies. The new party is evidence of this. Well, I don't believe they're moving away. I think they're moving away from the old guard. The New Guard is more oriented among, the working class Americans. It's become a workers' party. It's Trumponomics. It's, border security, immigration restriction. Hopefully we get some more of that in the end of the decade. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts here. But it is true that issues like abortion, which were more forefront with people like Bush and Romney, they're not giving up, but they're on the back burner. You see a lot of the platform, what it is, it's more just simplification. The average person can read it. It's not 1,000 pages like the phantom shadow boxing target of the Democrats with Project 2025, which is 1,000 pages. And apparently they think Donald Trump is stupid and also more in decline than Biden, but he's also read every single word of this thing, and he's this evil genius dictator. They can't have it both ways. The American people know it's a scam. They have to run against things that aren't real because they can't beat Trump on anything that is real, which is the funniest part of this thing. Now they have to change out their candidate. They're getting this bump, but even then the bump is waning. She can't even lead the popular vote by 2 as a Democrat in August. That's embarrassing. I think Democrats in 2022. I feel like they even in the generic House vote in August, they led by maybe not 2, but I think they led by 1. I think it was more early September, but still. I mean, let's see. Polite Rude Guy says, if gay marriage should be banned. I say yes. Should have never become legal in the first place. They redefine, so redefinition of institutions. Civil unions are one thing. If it was really about rights, you would have been fine with civil unions. No, we have to. They want to go in there. They want to redefine marriage. Obama was against it. Biden was against it. Hillary Clinton was against it. All the Democrats were against it until, I don't know, we'll just decide to turn on a dime in 2012 for some reason. I don't know. That's a problem. And then public opinion changed with it. And I think it's an issue. I think Obergefell should be overturned. I think obviously you're not going to have a lot of it legal in certain states, but I don't know, maybe Mississippi goes with civil unions and other states will follow. Who knows? But we'll see. It's just what it's done to our institutions, like marriage, like other things, and what it's also led to. That was the dam that broke, and the alphabet nonsense came pouring through that dam. They'll say, well, it doesn't affect you personally. Well, it does affect a lot of people personally because of what it's led to. The slippery slope is not a fallacy. It has been everything but. And that might be one of my more unpopular opinions. I am a pragmatist about the issue. I get it. Just like abortion, it's not something I would run on for political office in a swing state necessarily. But it's just one of those things. Valentino Francesco Di Marco Romano says, Italians love Trump. We call him Trumpino. It's a lot of Italian names in that super chat. We'll appreciate the 2. Ragdoll MMA says, I'm very concerned about Georgia not looking good. I mean, what's not looking good in particular? Because you look at Georgia, the polls are tied? They're at 48.1 each. That's a jump ball. Look at the polls in Georgia. Bloomberg, Morning Compost, Fox News, underestimated Republicans in the midterms in August by 3 points in the Senate race, over 3 points in the Senate race in Georgia. Cook Political Report is tied. I mean, it's a close state. I would be worried about Georgia in the way I'm worried about every other swing state. Worried, but cautiously, optimistically confident. I feel a little confident about the victory. Especially, I feel confident about North Carolina and Arizona, Nevada. Pennsylvania, there is a level of confidence. There's also a level of worry. Now, of course, the aggregate, there's been 2 awful. We looked into the... You look into the metrics of some of these polls, Quinnipiac, New York Times, Bloomberg, all of these 3 polls, not really that great. We polled it ourselves. We got Trump by 1. I think it's a close Trump win. We'll see. But you gotta make sure you pad your margins a little bit more than that just because of any sort of stuff. SSB 7149 says, what do you think needs to happen to flip a state like Washington? As a Washington resident, I'm sitting here fed up with all this stupidity. I don't know. You're going to have to do it with more of a rhino type of governor. I'll say that. You could probably do that. You could flip a state like that and maybe get some decent control at the state level. But as for the presidency, no, we're not. We're nowhere near that. We're not going to flip Washington. We're not even going to probably flip Virginia, as many people would hope. I think that there's an outside shot if everything goes right, but it's very, in my opinion, like 15 to 20% odds right now. I'll give Trump, 2-1 odds of winning a lot of these swing states. Give him 3-1 in North Carolina, maybe a little bit more than that. Give him about 2-1 in terms of the favorite, as in 66%, 70%, in terms of how much of a favorite he would be. But let's see. Ragdoll MMA says, I want to see you v. Harry Sison in a debate. I mean, it's hard to go into a debate with somebody, not for me, but for somebody who gets all their talking points like this guy, paid shill. How's he going to even do in a debate? I've seen him. I actually have seen him in the crossfire on Piers Morgan. He just makes a fool out of himself. He said, Biden won the debate. Biden did a great job. Yeah, nobody believes that except you. Like that's just, is it worth it? I mean, I wouldn't shy away from it, but am I going to go out of my way to make it happen? Probably not. But we'll see. I would be down to debate after the election. We talk about some other topics and stuff and get into the hopefully second Trump administration, the second stint, the second term. James says, do you think he will beat Tubby Tester like a drum? He'll beat him easily. It's not going to be close. The internals for Tester are so bad. He's like trying to say, look at me, guys. I'm MAGA now. Like, no, you're not. Eric from Wisconsin for 5 says, the slippery slope of love is absolutely something we need to worry about. The left is already going down to the consent of mind. Well, there's been some pushback on that front, but there are people that will go down that pathway. There are. So, Ash K2 says, if Trump loses, I'll never support another MAGA cult Republican ever again. I've been stressed out. All you can say is doom or not helpful. Well, because you're dooming for reasons that are illogical. I think that there's nothing that you've said that is a serious concern. If you want to be concerned, you should be concerned about serious things. I'm concerned about, are we going to get our low propensity voters out to vote? I'm concerned about things that actually determine elections, not things that don't actually determine elections. I don't purposely try to go out of my way, look at bad data, and try to use that to validate some bizarre, we're screwed mindset that I want. Why would you want to have? I'm not saying you should want to stick your head in the sand, but you also can't be this type of person that says, oh, well, Texas is going blue, Cornyn's going to lose, but, he might win because he's moderate. And no, it's nothing to do with that. Probably more to do with whatever war chest he would get. And because Democrats don't have a bench in Texas and they wouldn't even contest the race. And obviously, I'm not saying put up Ken Paxton. Not that I don't like him, but maybe that's more risky in a Senate race when he's such a good AG. You want to keep him AG. He'll win the AG race easily. But you put up somebody halfway decent if we possibly can. There's plenty of other people on the bench in Texas that are electable, that are solid, that would be far better in that seat and can win even in an environment that would favor Democrats. So, I don't know. You tell me. I think it's a little deeper than what you're saying. Jonathan Williams has finally got my LSAT score back, a couple of points lower than I wanted, but I'm going to law school next fall. August LSAT was unusually difficult. Well, it's the first new one. I think they got rid of the fun section, the logic games, and they replace it with another section of logical reasoning. And they're doing some like different types of questions to kind of test the same stuff. I guess it's difficult. It is difficult for a lot of people, unless they struggle on the other section. But I feel like the other section is easy for people to do better on. But now it's gone. So, oh well. The Pueb says, if Kamala wins, will you delete your channel? Well, no. There's no reason to. This channel has not been right about everything. We keep it up. The thing about a Kamala victory is I think it can happen. I don't think it's favored to happen. I don't think that the people that think that, Trump is going to go out there and she's going to beat him, she's going to win the popular vote by 7 points like this one ActiVote poll that had horrendous methodology says. Like, no, those people can't really deal with those people. As in terms of the Kamala chances, she has a decent shot because everything is going right for her, except I guess this interview, and the DNC kind of sucked. So people need to do their part and get out and vote. But I'm just saying the average public opinion has not shifted in this race as much as the polls have shown it to shift. So maybe the polls were overestimating Trump before or underestimating him now, or it's a little bit of a mix. I think it's a little bit of both, but people need to get out and vote regardless of whatever the polls are showing. We're conducting polls in swing states. We'll probably do Georgia next, maybe Ohio, just to get a glimpse of the Senate race and try to incorporate some different questions in the reasoning that might kind of get a better picture of Bernie Moreno's real chances of victory in that Senate race. So we might be doing Ohio. Garrett Vranikar says Trump should play to his base more on issues he ran in 2016, like immigration, which most Americans believe is an issue. Kamala's backtracking on her policies, yet Trump disavows Project 25. Well, I think that the issue he ran in 2016 were he had foreign policy, which he is running on, and he's got a record that's pretty good on that too. He's running on the immigration issue. I'd like to maybe hear more about reforming the legal immigration system, but the border talk definitely brings more people into that as well. And obviously you don't want to poison the donors a little too much, but he's still got some very talented people that are aligned with him that know the immigration issue, people like Stephen Miller, who would be an actual good border czar or an immigration czar, as he was during Trump's tenure. And we did see legitimate cuts in legal migration. But beyond that, there's also, the economy, which includes trade, and he touches base on that all the time. And then there's obviously the drain the swamp aspect, I think was the fourth that he hasn't touched base on a lot, but I think RFK Jr. being there and down the stretch, I think he's going to probably come up with a 100 days agenda again as he did in 2016 and really hammer that home on message. If he's able to do that, then he'll be more than fine. I'm not worried about Project 25 being disavowed. People will make a big deal out of it, but again, what they've been saying in the document are things that don't have anything to do with Trump's original agenda. I mean, they're talking about cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, national abortion ban, all this other stuff. It's electoral poison, whether you agree with it or not, and Trump is distancing himself from a document. Now, maybe the staffing element of it is a positive, and Trump's campaign manager, I feel like, is pushed back maybe a little too hard in that department. But other than that, I think that's not really an issue. The average voter in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin doesn't care about that. Ash Kate. Okay, we're not going to read that one. Okay. This guy, it's not stable. This is not stability. Like, I'm not saying this to cause any sort of, feud with a super chatter, but just get it together in all aspects. This is not stability. It's not how stable people behave. So let's see. We got another super chat as well. Valentino Francesco DiMarco Romano says, "Pull Maryland, I'll pay for it. Can Hogan win?" I don't think we're going to pull Maryland, man. I really don't believe we will. Hogan's got no shot. If you want to donate to the polling fund, the link's in the pinned comment, you can. But polling Maryland, you'd have to probably pay us more than the poll would cost for us to dive into that pool of sorts. I don't feel like we're going to do that, but I don't know. If you get it, if you're willing to pay for it, maybe I'd have to talk to the group chat about that, the polling GC. But anyways, guys, I think we're going to wrap things up. It's been a great stream. We've gone on for like 2 hours. It's been real. It's been crazy. We covered the interview. We covered a lot of polling stuff, a lot of electoral stuff. Everything I've wanted to cover over the past week without streaming, we've covered. Merch will drop tomorrow. It should, if not Saturday. We'll do our call-in show on Saturday. If you guys want to call in, you can join the website at redeaglepolitics.com. It'll be 16 cents a day. It'll be $5 a month. Maybe this time we'll do, you guys can come to me with your questions there, your concerns there, and we'll take those, because I've given the people a lot of questions, but I mean, you guys can ask me a question next time. We'll see. But I don't know. Do we have any more super chats? I think that we have one more. Jared the American says we need prayers. I think Trump wins, but close. Yes, prayers are good and they definitely matter, but we also need action. Action will help people if they can get involved. I mean, it's a numbers. This elections are numbers games. That's all they are. That's why I scoff at a lot of the the key believers. This is not what they used to be. This election could come down to 1,000 votes in Pennsylvania, and an antiquated model is not going to determine that, because there's so many things that could impact a race outside of that model. That's the main point. So that's what I say. But I agree. We do need prayers, and make sure you guys like the stream, subscribe, hit the bell before you go. I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.